Joining me now to discuss the investigation into Imran Awad and the investigation into Fusion GPS, Chief Political Correspondent for the Washington Examiner, Fox News contributor Byron York. Byron, by the way, she kept him on even after his wife fled the country, and the FBI says she's probably not going to come back, because if she did, she'd be arrested too. So there were plenty of reasons to fire this guy. The National Review suggests today that one of the reasons they didn't, and one of the reasons that a lot of Democrats are afraid of this guy, is because he may be blackmailing them.
Well, you know, with the IT guy, you never know what he knows.
That's right.
I mean, exactly. So the thing is that this man had access to many House offices, whatever was on their private email systems. And one thing we've seen is that in the indictment seems to go kind of very easily on him and doesn't even take into account what is, I think, a very suggestive piece of evidence about him, which is that he was fleeing the country.
Yeah.
And his wife had already fled the country, and they were clearly, they had transferred a lot of money to Pakistan where they were going. And that's clear evidence, I think, of an intent of wrongdoing here.
Yeah, and money that was derived, by the way, from a credit union, a lot of it, by the way, which was run like the Keystone Cops were running. I mean, they essentially, one of the things they did was give him a $200,000 loan, a home equity loan on a property that he didn't own, that he was renting, because he had that list of Democratic supporters, all these Democrats that he was working for as a contractor. He could flash that, and if you have that, you can apparently get anything you want from the Congressional Credit Union.
Yeah, and regardless of the explanation we just heard from Debbie Wasserman Schultz, I mean, there still are real questions about why she seems so loyal to him for all this time. There have been serious problems in this case for quite a while, and the question is, the police in the Capitol actually do seem inclined to go after this, and it has become a criminal matter. So if it goes farther, we will have ways of finding out about it.
Well, and again, it's become sort of emblematic of the Washington swamp that you have this institution like the credit union willing to give people like that all the money he wants, and how he got through there and stayed there despite all this stuff, all the warnings, is an impossible situation. It just, again, shows the swamp and the way it works. Okay, Fusion GPS, another sort of product of the swamp in a way. Glenn Simpson, who, by the way, was a colleague of mine at the Wall Street Journal, used to do some pretty good pieces about Whitewater back in the Clinton days, went on, formed this organization, Fusion GPS, that went and worked with Democrats to undermine Republican targets that Democrats had, one of whom was Donald Trump. And we're learning a lot more about Glenn Simpson and his activities now.
Well, Simpson met yesterday for 10 hours with investigators from both parties of the Senate Judiciary Committee. And they did not get an answer to the #1 question they had, which is, who retained you and paid you to do this Oppo research on Donald Trump? We know that toward the end of the summer of 2016 into the fall of 2016, apparently Fusion GPS was paying an intermediary who paid intermediaries to pay Russians to give dirt to an ex-British spy on Trump.
Right.
So there's some really, really funky things going on in this case, and Simpson met voluntarily with the committee. They couldn't force him to testify, and the one thing that he has said all along that he's not going to talk about is who retained him.
Well, and again, the key question for all the talk about Russian collusion, this does seem to be a case, if in fact it plays out, and you and I follow the evidence, that's our job, but the evidence seems to be pointing that there was a relationship between Fusion GPS, the Democrats, and Moscow. If you're looking for collusion, this is a good place to start, right?
Yes, and some of the sources, apparently, who were paid to give information in this project were related to the Kremlin. You know how many times we see in newspaper accounts of the Trump story, we see Kremlin-backed, Kremlin-linked.
But
well,
not
these
now.
are Kremlin-linked Russians, yes.
Not now, except in the Washington Examiner, where my friend Byron York works. Byron, great to see you. Thank you for coming in.
Thank you, David.